Okay, so this is next Intellect, Module 2, Lesson 2, Tool Comparison, comparing ChatGPT with some of the other players. And those on the call, you see I am sharing, so you should see the slide.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't showing something else. Pathway overview. This lesson introduces beginners to the landscape of AI tools available today with the focus on chat and how it compares to alternatives like Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and Claude. You'll learn the key strengths and weaknesses of each tool, understand what makes one better suited for a certain task compared to another, and practice selecting the right tool for different real-world scenarios. By the end, you should have a better idea of how to evaluate AI tools independently and choose the best one for your needs. Workforce targets are to identify and name at least 3 popular AI tools beyond ChatGPT. What you see below just saying Gemini, Copilot, and Claude would meet that, and any of the other ones mentioned in slides thus far. Explain the key differences between ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and Claude in just plain language. Evaluate output quality by comparing responses from multiple tools on the same prompt. Match specific use cases to the most appropriate AI tool based on tool strengths. Demonstrate understanding of cost, speed, and capability trade-offs when selecting an AI tool. Create a personal decision matrix to guide future. Uh-oh, let's see. Echo's gone. Okay. Demonstrate understanding of cost, speed, and capability trade-offs when selecting an AI tool. Create a personal decision matrix to guide future tool selection. Minimize that so I can see everything that's in the way. There we go. And articulate why no single AI tool is the best for all situations. Vocabulary for this lesson: AI tool, ChatGPT, prompt, output, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, latency, accuracy, and use case. So for the live build demonstration, you need to write a professional email to your boss, but you are not sure how. Which AI tool would you try first and why? Using what we've went over so far, you're probably whichever tool that you were comfortable with that was text-based, so ChatGPT, if that's the one that you use, that's probably who you were going to go to, but you'll be able to test out others and see, make sure. Okay. Number two, if one AI tool gives you an answer in 2 seconds and another takes 30 seconds, what difference does that make to your work? Well, an example like that, small incremental doesn't seem like much, but you could view that as it's 15 times faster. So you would be saving time and all that adds up. Have you ever used more than one search engine like Google and Bing? Think about what made you choose one over the other. So you probably locked in and had a preference for one as your search engine and stuck with it like most people do. Google's kind of the main player there. So maybe it's the interface that you're used to. You like the personal touch they add. Google updates the sometimes for holidays what the how the Google image their logo, clicking on it. Sometimes it even has like games tied into it. And ultimately, the same as you were choosing your search engine and what best suited your needs, applying that to testing out different tools, and you'll probably have a similar thing comparing like Google and Bing. And that question was repeated from earlier, thinking about a task that AI could help you out with right now. And do you think it would be beneficial, or do you think the AI might struggle with it? So maybe you don't know what you want to have for lunch, but you have so many items in your fridge, or maybe you're limited on the budget that you're wanting to spend that day for lunch. If that's the case and you're driving somewhere within a certain mileage, places that are open, AI would actually be very well suited to that because for the human, right, you might not know of all the places in the area and you'd have to research all of them. And Google doesn't always have the up-to-date store hours taken into account for also looking at social media to check are they closed for, say, like Memorial Day. And then being able to synthesize all that information together of, hey, I'm looking for a lunch that's going to be under like $10, okay? And the type of food you want within so much mileage. Maybe you are looking for something different. Tell it the type of things you normally eat. If you have any dietary restrictions, allergies, things like that, and to provide you with a list of places that meet that criteria, that could definitely help you out in that brainstorming of it. And then once you find some of the places you're interested in, doing further research on those restaurants. So we're going to compare ChatGPT with some of the other popular tools like Gemini, Copilot, and Claude. And by the end of the lesson, you should have a clear decision guide to help you choose which AI assistant to use. So why compare tools? Well, they're all going to have different strengths. They're going to have weaknesses in some cases. So you need to be able to see what is best suited for what task. ChatGPT is made to be fast and conversational, but it might not be the best choice for every task. Gemini is known to excel at research and current events because it connects to the internet. Now, ChatGPT does too. I know there's more of the with the paid version, so I don't know. Since I have the paid, I don't know if the free has, because I had that message before at the free. If you go to ask it about like availability at a certain hotel or something dates, if it doesn't have access right to current searching the internet and things like that, it'll tell you. Okay. If you're using one for booking something, you're going to want to have access to real live up to date information on the internet. Microsoft Copilot is embedded in tools that you already use if you're using Microsoft. Claude is known for careful reasoning, and knowing these differences means that you could work faster and get better results. Some of this is repeated of like who made which company and what they're best suited for. ChatGPT was made by OpenAI. It excels in creative writing, brainstorming, and explaining topics. Reminder that Google and Gemini, that it's Google's Gemini and it integrates with the Google workspace. Copilot is Microsoft, and so all the Microsoft Office suite, it's going to work well with it. Claude is made by Anthropic, and it's gaining popularity for its careful analysis and long documents. And each one of these has a free version, so that's great for testing it out like a sandbox, playing around with it, seeing how it works, if you like it or not, what type of output you get, and paid options. So looking at the strengths and limitations of some of these, ChatGPT is the most widely used AI tool. It's been around for quite a while, and we have said it's in our kind of day-to-day lexicon now between students in high school, college students, people everyday life. Age doesn't really matter. We have people in all sorts of age brackets talking about using ChatGPT for something. And it is fast, intuitive, and excellent at general writing tasks. It can explain code for like a software developer. and help out with simple coding, simple writing code, simple software development. Now, not to say what is the if that's been updated or not, that its data, especially for the free version, might only be up to a certain point. And also, if it can't browse the internet in the free version, then you're not getting that up to date. So, of course, you wouldn't want to use it for like up to date research if it doesn't have data past a certain point. And chat has told me that before. A couple of years ago is when it said like it didn't have anything like before like 2021 or so. So if you ever get a message like that, that'll let you know it doesn't need any data for what you're asking for. You know, if you're referring to like research for an old for an English assignment and say it's Shakespeare or something, right? Well, it's pulling from things that are pre that anyway, so it's not going to be any problem in helping you out with it. But if there's a resource that you're wanting to use past what it has access to, then it could let you know it doesn't have access to it. And then that might be where you swap over to Gemini. It sometimes generates confident but incorrect answers, so it might hallucinate and tell you something is 100% true and it's 100% not true. And it may produce, this could be any of them. You might get similar responses sometimes if your prompts don't vary enough. And so it could feel repetitive and you're struggling to get it to get closer to what you actually intended. So sometimes it's good just to wipe the slate clean and create a new chat. You know, if you have that ongoing conversation in a chat going and the output is starting to look similar, no matter that you're getting more detailed in your prompts because it might have got locked in thinking that you mean something and you didn't. You can always try swapping to a different tool or doing a new chat and seeing if that changes things. Gemini, its strengths and limitations. Strength, it could search the internet so it knows today's news and current events. It integrates seamlessly with Gmail, Docs, and other Google tools. It's free and does not require a subscription. It does have like the higher tier and stuff, so you can do paid stuff. Some users report it is less reliable at code generation than ChatGPT, and it sometimes gives longer, more verbose answers when shorter ones would do. And I have noticed that with certain things. So, as like the example, if we were going to ask it about how a teacher might use, if you wanted it to give 3 examples how they might use in a job, well, by limiting it to that number, that would help cut it down. If we just said how it might help them on all sorts of tasks or whatever, it might give you something that's way like 2, 3 pages worth, and then you're going to want to get it to organize it and shorten it. Um, Especially if you open up the doors to like online resources and things like that that could offer, it might give you too much information at one time. And then another reason, ease of access of using it, everything. ChatGPT's been around longer, so there's more tutorials for it. So Gemini being newer, there might not be as many tutorials to use and walkthroughs, and so that could be something that could deter somebody from being able to use it and confidently. Copilot, working with the Microsoft Office suite. It also can analyze documents and emails that are already in your Microsoft account. It's free for most users and it's tightly linked to Microsoft products. So it is less useful if you use other tools. So if you're mainly working in the Google suite, then Gemini is probably going to work better for you because it could already be in there like you're in your email if you're in your Gmail and you have that enabled that you could see Gemini for asking questions and things. If you're using Microsoft Office and you notice Copilot being there or having like a chat bot to interact with, that's meaning you're not having to go out of it and open up a tab and pull up a different thing like Gemini. It does have a limit of less flexibility for custom or advanced use cases compared to ChatGPT. Now, Claude's strength is designed to be careful, honest, and thoughtful about complex topics. Right? This is the synthetic version of these things of like how it would need to be careful, like a person would, giving honest feedback when can a machine really be honest about something? Can it really be thoughtful or thinking? So it's just to make it seem more like conversation, having a conversation with a human. It excels at analyzing long documents, research papers, and multi-step problems. It has strong safety features. We mentioned the need for all of them to have that. This was supposed to be at another level of even more of any type of like harmful content. It is newer and less widely known, so fewer people know how to use it effectively, would be one limit. And the free version, another limit would be it has lower usage limits than ChatGPT, meaning in that free tier, you're not getting to create as much stuff like in an amount of time, like in a day, before you have to wait for it to reset. And it doesn't have internet search built in like Gemini does. So those already give you an idea of a task you're doing of some of the things you're like, oh, the other one's going to be better suited for this. Now, for your output quality, notice it's not a one size fits all. Okay, so you could write creative short stories or write a poem in the different ones there. It just be ChatGPT might seem to shine if you compare it to the others with something more like what you would write in your voice or based on the prompt that you gave it. For researching a current event, if it has access to the internet and can have current information, then Gemini would shine. For analyzing a 50-page legal document, Claude may do better than Gemini and Chat. Okay. For drafting an email in Microsoft Outlook, because Copilot integrates with Microsoft, it's the fastest choice because you're not going outside of it and pulling up another AI tool. The best way to compare is to give all four tools the same prompt. You could always try that between different tools you're working with and test the responses to see which one worked best for that specific need, especially if you're building something that you're going to use again, like templates. And you might realize when you're doing task A, this AI tool's better suited. When you're doing task B, another one's better suited. Now consider things like cost. Okay. Are you able to use the free version and does it suit your needs without having to do a paid tier? Your paid tiers are usually going to work faster in the processing and are normally going to let you create a lot more. Gemini and Copilot are free for most use cases. Speed of the different ones from what you're doing, of course, matters. If you're needing like to get things out, a lot of things created in a short deadline, and we know that time is money. If you're having to wait for the response back, would it be quicker for you to have looked it up yourself? You're hoping that the AI is going to have given you the response quicker than you could have done it. And at the bottom note, there's no perfect tool. The right choice depends on your specific task, budget, and workflow. So how to choose the right tool? There's some sample questions you could ask yourself whenever you start sandboxing, messing around with some of these different ones. You think of a task that you're doing or about to do, and you could say to yourself, am I going to need current information from the internet? Am I already logged into a specific platform like Microsoft or Google? How fast do I need the answer? Is this something that needs to be generated, in seconds versus something that you get back in a minute? Do I need any specialized features like code generation or long document analysis? And once you answer these questions, that was kind of like a flow chart of it should lead you to the things we saw of some of the different tools, what they excel at. You should know, okay, which one's probably better suited for that task. Another important note is that working with AI to be successful with it, you're not locking into just one tool for every task. Okay, actually looking at what's better suited for something. The same way as having a toolbox, you're not using a hammer for a task that you were going to use a screwdriver for. So they're all useful tools, but you're not going to use the hammer to tighten a bolt. And in your career, you will develop your own workflow and favorite combinations of tools. Your job is to stay curious, test new tools, and always ask which tool will make you more productive today. So I have this image generated of an idea of an AI toolbox. Okay, so AI innovation kit, and in it we have some things that we could choose to work with, like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. You'll recognize Midjourney was mentioned in the lesson, as well as Stable Diffusion. Now, in generating this image, I changed the behind the scenes of this is, of course, looking for any imperfections I wanted to remove. I didn't look up to see if Mistrial was one and if Llama 2. So that would be something if I wanted to make sure that those were AI tools that were similar. Everything was clear enough at the front. The person using in the image, nothing stood out of being awkward with the body. Then I look forward, am I worried about imperfections like if you zoom in on stuff, you're probably not going to be able to read things that weren't actually made clear. So it looks like deep learning and some things. There's AI imperfections. It's just a bunch of textbooks. I will say that there was some bias when this image was generated. So we talk about being able to identify it. And right here, there used to be something. Okay. There was an uh, a god of, I guess, Asian culture that was like, looked kind of like an elephant or something. Okay, why did it add that in there? Well, we happen to have this Asian man here. Well, we don't want to assume somebody's religion based on their ethnicity, and especially using this in something like I don't want to offend anybody and making assumptions. So I just told it to get rid of that, and it got rid of it. So you got to look out for things like that where it might have thrown in something because of somebody's like culture, and you're like, no, that's not right to put that in like this lesson. Okay, it wasn't relevant, and it doesn't apply to everybody. Okay, so the guided build is going to be using ChatGPT and Gemini, where we could have them both open. Already have mine open. Now we could arrange our windows side by side so you could see both screens and use this prompt in both of them. Explain what AI is as if you were explaining it to a 10-year-old, or maybe you're meaning if you were a 10-year-old. Okay. Now, how you could do this, which I have a bunch of tabs up. So this was Gemini here, and this was chat. Okay. Well, I probably need to move Gemini to right click on up here and move it to a new window. That way I could maximize it, minimize it separately, and then click and drag it where I want to. Now, you're probably familiar with doing that, like moving something where you want it, but you might not know that you could do this since it said to have one on both sides of the screen to make it easy to look at. And I think the way it was sharing, since I was doing the entire screen, will check. You should just be seeing this process. So I have ChatGPT and Gemini here, but if I actually want it to be like equally split, you can just drag it to the edge of your screen until it tries to snap it to it and let go. So now ChatGPT is on my left. Click back on the one that Gemini was, and there we have that split. Okay, if you need to manually put that one, go all the way over to the right. And this is how you could do this task. Okay, did that work for the sharing the screen? You see both of these.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then we're going to type in the prompt in both of them to compare them. So I have chat on the left, Gemini on the right. Explain AI as if I were a 10-year-old. Just thought for a second because I think it also says we could compare the how long it took for the output. Of course, if I want to, that was short enough that I would be able to type it just as fast as doing this. But always, if you wanted to use the same prompt and just copy it and paste it into another one. Okay, and let's see, Gemini's thinking. I know one thing is accurate from what it said might happen. We do have a lot more from Gemini. It might be more than we wanted. Okay, so ChatGPT from that says AI is like a really smart helper computer that learns from examples. It gives us this example of how it would recognize dogs to the point of looking at a new picture and guessing that's probably a dog. Well, that lines up with what we were using in lessons as a good example, not too technical for someone that's 10. Saying it's not exactly like a person in the way that it thinks, it doesn't have feelings or common sense like you do. But some of the things it could do: find patterns, answer questions, help write stories, make pictures, translate languages, and solve problems. A simple way to say it: we have AI as a computer program that learns patterns from examples so it can help make decisions, answer questions, or create things. Then we could do follow-ups to that if we wanted it to, with that final sentence there, to simplify that even more. If we wanted a different example than the dog illustration there, we could. But let's go ahead and look at what Gemini came up with. It also did the dog example of training. Imagine you wanted to teach a dog how to catch a frisbee. You wouldn't hand the dog a book of rules to read. Instead, you would throw the frisbee and watch what the dog does and give it a treat when it gets close to catching it. After practicing over and over, dog figures out the trick. AI is a lot like that, but for computers. So note, they're both mentioning the training part that goes in. This one's referring to um, a way AI could learn that we didn't get into yet, is this one's including reinforcement. So just like mentioning giving the pet a treat, the same thing can happen for AI where it could be rewarded for having correct outputs or better outputs and not get the rewards for poor output. Or it could gain points and lose points. Instead of writing a giant list of strict rules telling a computer exactly what to do step by step, scientists give the computer a massive bunch of examples and then a goal. It is nice that it gives us in these sections, it did say, not meaning that chat wouldn't have done that, it just happened to do it. How does it actually work? In steps. Where do you see AI every day? And the big takeaway. So it went ahead and gave this because it's predicting that people usually would want to know this information too. Okay, how does it actually work? And where do you see it? So it wasn't wrong to give that, but that's a little extra. Okay, so then if I wanted to know the follow-ups that it didn't give in chat, I could say like, how does it actually work? Or where do you see it every day? We could change the criteria to now explain AI and how it is trained. If I, or maybe you put the decade, an age range that you're in. So maybe you put 25 to 40. Feel free to tweak it however you want or to update what the topic is. Okay. I notice it's a little more technical things in there now that we're not limiting it to how to explain it to a 10-year-old. Okay. Another thing that we could do to compare them is if you wanted to tell it to like create an infographic on showing how AI, our original question, just explaining AI. So we could do that. Click on the plus and click create image. And now it knows that we're wanting it to create an image. You have some options on changing some things, how the layout of the thing's going to be, if it's going to be a portrait or not. I'll just say create an infographic that shows how AI works. Would understand. Then I'll do the same thing with Gemini. Now my chat though note is a paid tier, whatever, so my output might be uh, different comparing the two, and my Gemini is the free version. So note some things behind the scenes with its rules and everything we talked about, and being careful with the content since it was dealing with the child or a Z, is taking that into context so that this is a child-friendly infographic being created, and it's going to try to make sure it's easy to follow. Now, with those parameters, this is taking a little longer than other images to create. So I'm hoping when it takes extra time that I'm probably not going to have to follow up and change things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead while that's going, copy and paste this into Gemini and enter that one. And if you had another tool you were testing at the same point, that way while they're loading, you could be working on another task. That's what's great. These are the things that could be running in the background. Okay. We noticed Gemini came up with something much more quickly, and I clicked on it after, right, and submitted. Okay, let's click on this. I'll zoom in and some. We have how AI works for kids. We want to check that the information's accurate and that there's nothing that would be AI imperfections, misspelled words, anything that we don't want to have on this chart here. So we have gathering data, finding patterns, making predictions, getting smarter. That follows the flow well of data training and output. Practicing and learning from mistakes to solve new problems. Okay. This one, of course, AI being able to communicate natural language. We even have a different language here. We have French and English. Okay. Well, we do have hello twice, so not necessarily something that's a deal breaker with the image, but we probably don't need the repetition. We have different types of images to be labeled and identified, like dog, cat, car. The puzzle pieces are kind of making me think of how it's assembling these things to in its understanding, like finding patterns in data. Check what each of these says, collecting many examples, just like learning from a giant book of pictures and words. Called it a data basket. Finding patterns, the computer looks for clues and similarities, such as cats have pointy ears. We see that in the image. Okay, here's an imperfection. We don't have predictions here. So that would be a simple fix to tell it to fix that. Okay, making predictions, using its knowledge to guess or decide. This new picture is a cat. It gave us with the prediction, it gave us like the person with the magic ball seeing stone. So that's interesting for predictions to have a playful way to illustrate that. And then getting smarter, practicing and learning from mistakes to solve new problems. Probably signifying that they can recognize a cat even if it was in space in like a cartoon show, right? Illustrated that we're still saying that in general as a cat. And more practice equals better AI. Okay, and we have a smiley face on this person's hand for some reason. Okay, so we note that. Now I'm going to look at chat, GPT, how AI works, a kid-friendly guide. People give AI examples. AI looks for patterns. AI practices guessing. AI helps people. And an important note at the bottom. Okay, let's look into all of this. This one's looking more like an infographic, like a poster that you would put up. Right, the thing. This one more of, and that could go into, it said it was going to do a, oh, it's in the chat thing. It said like the ratio it's going to use This one may be better suited to like a slideshow. So updating it, we could ask for things that would affect its layout. So AI learns by looking at lots of examples. We have a cat, dog, apple, car. I do like that it's showing the kid that the human is at the center and giving the data and giving it so it can learn from the data and make find patterns. It's it's also good. This one's only showing a robot, right? Or in a robot in like the traditional sense. So it's good that this one's showing a computer and like a laptop that a kid might interact with. AI looks for patterns, things have in common. Okay, so we have cats of different colors, apples different colors. They're they are all cats, they are all apples, they are all cars. AI practices guessing. Is that a cat? Cat. Car? Keep practicing. So maybe if it saw the picture and identified it not as a cat, but wasn't sure if it was a car, for it to know that it needs to keep practicing, that's good. And then AI helps people. Then it can help people do useful things. Answer questions. What is the capital of France? Paris. Translate words. Okay. Hello. Is that Japanese? I don't know what that. We do have a, so we would want to check and make sure that that was accurate, that we have the symbols for the language and the, written out there, ni hao, to make sure that that was accurate. Makes a picture. Okay, we have a picture being created and sorting photos. So of these, putting them in the right places where they would go. So we have two pretty good, and just giving a few updates on what you would want. Important, AI is smart, but people still need to check its work. Really good note that this has that. So if we wanted it to update the image, and did anybody notice any imperfections or anything that definitely needs to be changed that I didn't notice?
No.
Okay. And if we were concerned if the character kept the continuity of like the same one, we have this boy and we have this girl here, looks close enough that that's supposed to be the same girl and that's going on. So that's something you could change if it added like a third person and you just wanted it to be the two people there. Um, if we wanted to leave off like the fourth one instead of the three, that's an option. If we wanted to change like the subtitle there, a kid-friendly guide, and see does it keep everything else. I could say looks good to give it some feedback, and then say remove. Okay, for this one, we did have the imperfections that I wanted to fix. So we need to add in our chat to remove the smiley face from the hand. Sometimes you give the direction in the thing just because there are hands on the robot too. So I'm going to say on the far right to try to have a better chance of this getting fixed in the first go round. And then there is an imperfection with making predictions. This should say predictions. Okay. It removed it, and it looks like it didn't change any of the other stuff, so that's good. That's what I was worried with. Sometimes it'll change other things you didn't want it to change. Okay. This one got rid of the smiley face, but it didn't get rid of that. So we can say you still have predictions misspelled under the robot with the magic ball, crystal ball. And then sometimes this is a chasing, like cat chasing mouse things. You might give up at the thing and try to get it to recreate a thing. Because sometimes when it messes up a word, it could take a while. If you're wasting time and everything else is good, is that, and you try like two or three different times to get it to fix the word, no, you could always put it in one of the tools that would erase something automatically for you, and then like have it put in the word then specifically in that place. It should be spelled predictions. And who knows, if I didn't do all caps like it is now, it might try to mix it together, but just showing this for illustration purposes. Overall, I'm pretty happy with both of them for what they do with just a few tweaks. Okay, while that's loading, we were to explain artificial intelligence to a 10-year-old, type it in chat, read the response, copy and paste it in Gemini. We did that. Looking at which ones we did, analyzing which ones gave better answers for what we were looking at. We saw that Gemini was faster in its creating of the image when I did that as a follow-up. Doesn't mean it always is. Then you'll repeat the steps using write a short paragraph about why renewable energy is important, just showing you to test a different prompt and thing. You might want to do a new chat for that one. That way it doesn't have the context about the 10-year-old and about AI. Okay, so this is a different topic here, but you could still do it in the same chat. You would just want to check and make sure that it's only pertaining to this in its response. And then using that for your lab this afternoon, you'll be able to create a table, whether you do it on paper or if you want to use Excel, or if you use Google Sheets, if you want to use on the computer a table maker, and it tells you how to organize it with 5 columns. And then you break down for those tools with testing them which one's going to be better suited for something and why that tool and what your second choice would be for something like writing an email or researching a history topic. And then you have your problems and solutions that you might face, best practices. Okay. I did have it create a an example of an AI workflow because that was mentioned, I think, back in the best practices, and we talked about workflow. Gemini created this as an example, not perfect. It is interesting it kept because I think it was in the same chat. We have the same room that the guy was in the toolbox, so this lets you know it was a follow up to that chat. But I wanted it to create an AI powered workflow for a plant based meat campaign because this is something that a market team could work on and might do in real life. So maybe you have something like this where they're using Gemini that has the internet access to gain insights by up to date sources and making consumer insights. So maybe it's giving trend reports and customer personas, the type of customers that would fit best with your base. It would glean things that we know that this is like a certain age group that's really into like sustainability and plant-based foods and stuff. Okay. But then at the same time, we have strategy and message ideation from ChatGPT to maybe come up with terms like eco-conscious that could be used. Could you term something as like the things that would be labeled on your product, delicious and healthy? Do you have a unique value proposition such as same taste, better footprint? Okay. And then and then having your social media for marketing going in, and then being able to have for that path, Gemini could predict performance of like the campaign when it comes to social media. When they've gotten to the point of what words they're using and who they're going after, you'll get to the point of creating your image assets. So using something like Dolly, using Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, okay, or Nano Banana and Gemini to create images here. And we notice some funny AI imperfections that you'll see like a green looking bun with like raw looking meat and stuff. So not really how you would want to get people excited about eating plant-based meat. But they're going to go through that process of creating visuals. Then ultimately the campaign will launch, and maybe they have two versions of it in the testing phase with a small group of people where they could test the campaign for maybe a month with one and a month with the other, and then that's when you see like certain commercials that get put out, that go for a long time that maybe it was successful. And they could follow up with this process with similar things. And then the distribution and optimization phase of when they're releasing all the information live on social media, when all the images are released, images, videos, and there's what all are they using? Is it general, like, are there ads on Amazon, Netflix, things like that? So that's the type of stuff AI can help with in this case, in this specific workflow. Read over the best practices, your reflection journal for this lesson. And other than we'll complete this, but we'll look real quick at, and there's Stable Diffusion. I had that pulled up. Notice it has a lot more stuff on its interface, but it goes ahead and gives you images as examples to test with. Image, video creation, audio. We'll close out of that one. Want to click back on Gemini was in this one. Scroll back down to where we were. Okay, the hand is still right. And lo and behold, it fixed prediction. So I'm impressed that it did it without having to go a few more times. I was worried about that. Then what I would do is check before using this if you were happy with it. Just because it fixed predictions and fixed the smiley face doesn't mean that it didn't change something else. So don't assume that it's everything else is the same as before that we liked. Okay. So especially if something wasn't child friendly or there was a word that was inaccurate, that would be bonjour now is misspelled or something, okay? I could do the remove the duplicate of hello. That would probably be the last thing that I would do before using this one. And then you could tweak it on sizing and all of that if it needed to be in a certain format. But that gave you an example of what you could do for your own prompt that you put in during the lab between Gemini and Chat, comparing them, and that also is giving you practice in implementing when you make your chart for certain types of tasks, like for email writing and when you're generating images, you're kind of build out for that's for you to use in real life. So this chart that you'll create, you'll be able to update. And at one point, you might have your top tool and your second choice. They might switch at some point, and that's fine. Okay, so that was the end of mod.